3 days left in Spain. 3 days before we go off to Melbourne for round one of the 2020 season, where Formula One is 70 years old this year. But savour these last 3 days, guys, in Catalonia. In the newest instalment of F1 24/7 News, we will try to bring you some of the biggest stories in Formula One. Now, of course, we are in the interim of 6 days of testing at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. Test 1 was last week, and we are in the middle of Test 2 of the 3 days before Melbourne. Some of the biggest stories have come from winter testing. We'll try and stay away from them, but fortunately we can't. So let's stick with some of the big stories, and boy, there were some big stories from Test 1. The first big story is a story that came out in 2019, but for another team. And this year it might be back for another one. The word sandbagging. Does that ring any bells? Sandbagging was the word we used for Mercedes in pre-season. Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas not performing to the way of what the 2018 car was like. Now, Ferrari were a stronger team in winter tests and, of course, showing what their car could do, but the W10 was just not performing to the best standard that we all knew Mercedes could be. Then it turned out in round one in Melbourne, especially in qualifying, that of course was not the case. Valtteri Bottas went on to win the race, the team that were looking like they were on the back foot, and the team that were looking like they were the strongest, Ferrari, had a bit of a miserable race with Sebastian and Charles. Now the tables have turned, and as Mercedes do look to be a strong, formidable team in the new W11 car, maybe helped by a few features, but stay tuned to find out what. They topped the timesheet in day 1 and day 3 respectively, with their two drivers swapping places. But their rivals Ferrari, the team who in 2019 looked to be stronger, are on a bit of a back foot. Now I said sandbagging to start with because that might be the word that we're using. But at the moment and what it's being perceived in the media, it might not be the case. Now, as I've just said, Mercedes were stronger, topping out a 1-2 finish in 2 of the 3 days. Ferrari were looking not very strong in overall. Now, they said 353 laps over the 3 days. On day 1, Charles Leclerc posted a 1:18.2 in 11th place, a full second behind the leader in day 1. Day 2 was a bit of a shock with both drivers on track. Charles posted a 1:18.3, good enough for 8th place, and Sebastian posted a 1:18.1, good enough for 6th place. Now this was a massive shock because Sebastian's ex-teammate, Kimi Raikkonen, who set the fastest lap of a 1:17 in an Alfa Romeo, beat Sebastian, beat the Ferrari, the SF1000, by a full 1 second. And on day 3, Sebastian went out in the car again, posting a 1:18.3, centenary laps for the German, but still a full second off the pace of the leader of that day. Now, Ferrari just not looking the strong car that we expected them to. Christian Horner has come out and said that Red Bull could be the second best team on the grid after the dominance that Red Bull have been showing, but also the lack of anything that Ferrari have been showing on track. The team's principal, Matteo Binotto, says that it is going to be a struggle ahead, and it is going to be a bit of a fight, harder than last year, to get the car to Melbourne and perform to basically bring the challenge to Mercedes. But is this all just words? Is this sandbagging? And is this just a bit of a bluff from Ferrari? Because this time last year, when they came away from pre-season, they were the top dogs. They were the team that everyone thought was going to dominate the World Championship and bring either Sebastian or Charles, probably Sebastian, a World Championship, really bring the fight to Mercedes. When Ferrari fell off the pedestal, which, I mean, second place isn't a massive, it isn't terrible, but to do any worse than what they performed in winter testing just showed that that car was not at the standard it was back when we did the 8-day testing in Barcelona. And on the flip side, Mercedes were stronger. So maybe Ferrari is saying these things to kind of back themselves up, give themselves a bit of insurance. Because if Ferrari say that they're not doing very well in testing, they rock up to Melbourne and exceed that, then everyone will think, oh my gosh, Ferrari are back. The Scarlet Red Ferrari, the team from Maranello, is stronger than normal. Or they'll just do average, and people will think, well, what do we expect? That's how well they did in Catalonia, and that's what we expect for the rest of the season. It's a bit of a strange one down at Ferrari. And a lot of people, Sebastian and Charles and Scarlet Red fans, are kind of scratching their head. What have Ferrari been doing in the last 3 days? Now, of course, as this episode goes out, day 1 is just finished, and we are in the middle of 3 days, the final 3 days of winter testing before Melbourne, so anything can happen. Maybe Ferrari can turn it around. But from what we saw in the first 3 days in Catalonia, the team just aren't there. Sebastian Vettel has come out and said that the power unit isn't as strong as it was last year, and that both drivers do need to put in a lot more work this year, including simulator work and on-track work, before they get to Melbourne to get the best out of the car. But maybe talk is cheap, and maybe they're just throwing a bit of a sleight of hand, a bit of a bluff to Formula One fans, themselves maybe, and Mercedes. So let us know in the comment section below, do you think Ferrari are stronger than what they appear in winter testing? Or do you think that the first 3 days of Ferrari and Catalonia haven't been as strong, and you, possibly as a Ferrari fan or not, are worried about them coming into this year? Now, it's no surprise that Mercedes are probably going to be stronger and definitely will bring the fight to Ferrari and make them sweat through the remaining races of the year. But if they haven't got the car to challenge them, then it's going to be a lot worrying. 2019 didn't see a massive fight between the cars, even though Charles Leclerc, of course, his dominant second part of the season brought the fight as best as he could, but it wasn't amazing. And if the SF1000 is going to appear like it has in Catalonia, then it's not going to be a great season for the Scarlet Red team, especially when they're celebrating their 1000th Grand Prix in Formula One later this season in Monaco. So let us know in the comments below, do you think Ferrari will be as strong as they were last year, even stronger, or from what you've seen in the first 3 days, it's not going to be strong at all? Das. Das ist cool. Was ist das? No, you haven't just clicked onto a German site, you're still on the F1 Debate Show in English. But more importantly, why is Mercedes the only person to think about Das? And what is Das? And who came up with that amazing name? I mean, you could have called it anything, Toto Wolff. Das is the dual access steering, and it was invented by Mercedes for this season, introduced on day 2 of pre-season testing. Now, I think only a handful of people in the world, including Ted Kravitz, could actually explain the technical side of this invention, but it was only brought about by Mercedes and none other of the remaining 9 teams on the grid. Even though Ferrari team principal Matteo Binotto, oh yes, he's back, twice in one episode, he said openly, about an hour after it was actually shown by Lewis Hamilton, that he could have actually came up with that idea, and Ferrari were thinking about it back in Maranello. Well, do you know what? If you were thinking about it, why didn't you just make it? So the dual access steering was brought in by Mercedes as a way to change the front wheels by the camber of the racetrack. Now, Ted Kravitz used the trombone effect, as the driver can of course turn left and right on the steering wheel, but pushing forward on the steering column and pulling the steering column towards the driver can change the camber of the front wheels. Changing this is a way of changing the position of the wheels on track, and this can change from anything from elevation to how bumpy the track is, to basically just more suit the car in the conditions that it's driving in. Now, the best way I feel to actually kind of explain it is a little bit like the active suspension brought in by Williams in 1993. It can kind of make the car more stable on track. It works with the chassis as well to kind of give the driver a better drive, make the gearbox and the engine work more smoothly, and is just another hydraulic thing that Mercedes have brought in to make the W11 even stronger. Now, you've been hearing a bit of rumours last week that it's going to be banned for 2021. Now, Chase Carey didn't actually say those words in maybe that order. But of course, the 2021 regulations state that this technological aid cannot be used on the car and can't just be utilised by one team. So Mercedes now have something that the other 9 teams on the grid don't have, as if a 6-time world champion wasn't enough. People are now left scratching their heads about how it's going to be used for the rest of the season and what benefits this is going to give to Mercedes. Of course, Mercedes are the team on the charge, if the last years weren't like that. Lewis Hamilton can go for 91 wins, emulating and beating Michael Schumacher in race wins, and of course matching the great man in terms of world championships with 7. And will this aid help them get there? Or will it just perform like a normal dominant Mercedes like the W10 was last year? Of course, the big regulation changes of 2021 will see some changes with this. It's still an ongoing investigation whether it will be used for next year. But if other teams say that they could have thought of that, well, they could have done that and they should have done that. It's said though that if they were going to implement that for the other 9 teams, it would take 6 months for this DAS system on all the 20 Formula 1 cars on the grid to actually come into effect. It's all a bit puzzling at the end of the day, But all the Formula One fans we know is it was a very strange thing to see on track. To me, it looked like someone was actually controlling the car as the wheels moved before the driver's steering wheel did. It was very strange to see. So let us know in the comment section below, do you think Das is cool, or do you think Das is not cool? Because if this wasn't here, it would feel like Mercedes would be the same as everyone else on the field. Well, if the last few years showed that they were. But now they've got something that the other teams won't have, and probably won't have for the rest of the season. Let us know down below, what do you think of Das, and did it make testing more entertaining? The Formula One and sporting world was left in shock when the Chinese Grand Prix was cancelled a few weeks ago due to the outbreak of the coronavirus in China. The World Health Organization has warned many parts of the world for the outbreak of the coronavirus, trying to quarantine and stop any spread and any further damage in the world. Other sporting events all around the world have been in jeopardy, and even the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo have been looked at with a pre-warning. But now there has been a coronavirus outbreak in Italy, around the surrounding areas of Maranello. Of course, this is only one company, but our very own Scuderia Ferrari have been warned about the outbreak in Italy, and Ferrari have been cautious with their employees and all their staff back at the factories about the outbreak. Italy Rugby in the Six Nations are set to travel to Dublin for their game against Ireland, but that might not be the best case for the Italian team. England will also play Italy on the final day in the second weekend of March. Again, these games are being closely monitored. There's no risk at this time. That game is in Rome, which is more central Italy, but these are all being monitored for the future as a precaution. Around half of the Serie A, Italy's Premier Football League, games have been cancelled this weekend due to the outbreak, and some of the events in Italy are looking to be cancelled in the next few weeks and months. Ferrari have been on the cautious side with their employees, hoping that everyone stays safe through this outbreak worry in Italy. Ferrari officials back in Maranello have said that keeping their employees safe is their top priority, and they say that they have taken precautions to make sure that the employees and everyone at the factories stay safe. We pray that everyone at Ferrari can stay safe from this outbreak, and we hope that they can get back to Formula One and racing. Of course, health and safety is our number one priority, but as I mentioned in the first fact, if they can get back to racing, they definitely need to, because they need to work on the SF1000 if it's going to challenge for the World Championship. The final thing now, and looking more on a positive and happy side, this week is a very special week. Friday is the last day of testing. Nothing else is planned until Melbourne. But if you think that these 3 weeks are going to be hard before we get lights out for FP1 in Australia, if you have Netflix, you're saved. Because on the 28th of February, or this Friday, sees the release of Season 2 of Netflix's original documentary, Formula One Drive to Survive, to give fans an insight into the teams and drivers and just everything that we don't get to see in race day. Series 1 was a massive success, of course, amongst Formula 1 fans, and indeed all around the world as well. Netflix is a global thing. Anything they put on there will be watched. Everyone will enjoy it, and it was just out and out amazing. Season 2 drops on Friday and is amazing. It has been hyped up so much in the Formula 1 community. It's even been advertised in other places, and a lot of people, even probably just normal sports fans, are really excited about this new series. I know I am. The trailer dropped about a fortnight ago and it looks absolutely amazing, following drivers we saw in Series 1 such as Daniel Ricciardo, obviously who did his transition from Red Bull Racing to Renault. Of course, Haas and Gunter Steiner, probably a very big favourite amongst fans of this series. It's going to be absolutely amazing. This, of course, will follow the 2019 Formula 1 season. It should be one team every few races, but the big thing we never got to see in Season 1 was Mercedes. Now, you might have been thinking, well, why wasn't that? And yes, I was a bit puzzled as well, because it would have been great to see the champions and how they got on with the W10 and just everything in that team. Well, I'm pleased to say they are on Season 2. They chose one race to be followed around by the Netflix documentary crew, and that race was a very special race. It was the 150th anniversary of Mercedes-Benz, the home race of Mercedes, the German Grand Prix. Yes, the German Grand Prix. Everyone got dressed up in all their retro things. Lewis and Valtteri, strong. It's Sebastian's home race. Lewis would love to win that, especially after what happened in 2018 at the German Grand Prix in Hockenheim. We lined up there and, well, I don't want to spoil anything. You'll have to watch it. But as Formula One fans, you probably know what happened. And that was Mercedes' one and only race with Netflix. So I don't know what episode that is, but of course that will be a good one. We also see some great racing as well, of course. We get to see some great personalities, including Gunter Stein, as I've just mentioned. Daniel Ricciardo, who's probably now the face of the global Formula One Drive to Survive on Netflix. Everything. Watching him go on talk shows and talk about everyone that's followed him in Drive to Survive is incredible. And I'm really excited to see what this guy can do in Series 2. So if you haven't got Netflix already, get on that monthly free membership when you sign up. Get on there, have some fun, fill in your 3 weeks before Melbourne watching Netflix Drive to Survive Series 2, and of course your weekly fill of the F1 Debate Show. And we'll see you for FP1 in Australia. So there we go, guys. That is the end of F1 24/7 news. Number 6 from the F1 Debate Show. Number 7 next week. Of course, we will be here to fill in the gap for Melbourne. If you like what you've heard around here, please like and subscribe. Stay on track with us throughout the rest of the 2020 season. I say rest, but we haven't even started. So just stay on track with us through the whole, not even started yet, of the 2020 season. Leave in the comment section below everything I've mentioned today, including are you a fan of Netflix's Drive to Survive? If you haven't watched it already, then I am very excited to see what you're going to be like on Friday. Let us know in the comment section below on Friday, if you haven't watched it, what is your immediate reaction about it? Of course, we will be reviewing and talking about it for many, many races to come. Thank you very much for listening, and of course, until next time, guys, we'll see you later.